Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Doom Productions podcast, a podcast hosted by Doom Productions. I'm Jordan.
I'm Ethan.
And we have our first guest on the podcast.
That's right.
Wow, am I the first guest?
I think so.
You are.
Zach has been a part of the podcast, but he's a part of the...
He's a part of the Doom family,
The Doom
I guess.
family.
So
Yeah. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Gibson, and I am the owner and creative director and just person about town at Videos the Future, a local indie film production company and studio space in Portland, Oregon.
That's right.
Yeah.
If you saw the video we posted this week, you'll recognize Michael. You'll have seen the space that we're sitting in right now, and so it might be a little bit repeating yourself. But I guess, what is the studio all about? What makes this studio different from other studios in the area or just in general?
Okay. I think every studio, it has like some really cool qualities. I think just the physical environment of all of them makes it different. Like, makes the projects that they're producing and the projects that come out of their studio space different. So at Videos the Future, I think there are three things we concentrate on. One is we're a space for other filmmakers to rent at a kind of affordable indie budget rate. To take their films or to make easier filming their movies or their passion projects or their short films or feature films. It's available for rent. We have about 800 square feet of a studio space. We have a lobby. We have an office space. And all that's available to shoot in. A lot of the space is made to look like a cafe or a therapist office or a small town police station. Soon we're going to have a hospital room. The main studio space is big enough for you to drive a car inside of it and shoot a driving sequence there. So these are all things that I think local filmmakers can rent to try to make their films a little bit nicer to shoot. Just a more accommodating, comfortable, and perhaps maybe just a little bit higher production value. And you can write some of those things in that you might not have been able to have access to previously. And the studio space is very friendly to narrative films. We certainly do music videos here. People can rent for photo shoots. People can rent for experimental art films. But I love narrative films, and I love narrative filmmakers, and that's probably what we're kind of most accommodating to. So people can rent the space. We also, and that means me and Allison, my studio manager, we also produce our own things here. So we just produced a romantic comedy short film. We're going to be producing a noir coming up soon. After that, we're probably going to produce an 80s slasher meets giallo film. After that, I think we have a horror movie set inside of a video game that I think is going to be kind of like a Goosebumps or a Are You Afraid of the Dark sort of vibe. And then after that, I mean, there's more projects after that, but that's kind of the slate for right now. So we have 3 projects on the horizon, short films that are all being produced here. Me and Allison make them together. We come up with the ideas together. We bounce ideas off of each other. And so people can rent the space. We make our own stuff. And the final part is community events. So we have classes. We're going to be doing lighting classes. There's going to be special effects persons networking nights. There's going to be filmmaker nights. There's a fundraising forum coming up, so you can attend that to find out how to fundraise on Indiegogo or Seed and Spark or Kickstarter for your short film, and learn from some other people who have done it already. We also had a holiday party. But yeah, so there's also like events that you can attend here. So even if you're not ready to film something, there is stuff for you to do here. There are small parties, there are learning environments, there are networking nights. And yeah, that's what it's about. So shoot your film here, rent it out. We're also making our own stuff, so you can crew up with us or act with us. And there's also community nights where you don't have to be actively shooting something to enjoy the space.
Yeah.
it's really cool that, I mean, so you said in the video, you've been here for 2 years now.
About 2 years.
Yeah, about 2 years. And it's really cool to see how ready, like, even though like it hasn't been a slow start for you guys. Like you guys are like trying to be a space that's like involved in the community, giving as many resources out to people.
At an affordable rate too.
Yeah.
Like I've looked at your rates on your web. I can't remember where it's posted exactly, but it's like, I could actually afford this.
Yeah.
Most studio spaces in Portland, I feel like, are very pricey.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Compared to like you rent here, and it's like oh my gosh, you get all this for X amount of money or whatever, how much it is.
And sort of at our level where we're operating generally without like scheduling out a budget for ourselves.
Our budget is our credit card.
Yeah, it's like the money we have is the money that our movie can be. So it's like to find a space that is so like accessible to someone at our level is pretty like special to us, and I think that's a cool thing to have. And again, like that you guys are so community focused is really great. Do you want to take us back to what made you start the studio? Like, was it just that kind of stuff, or was there other reasons that got you into like wanting to make this space happen?
Yeah. So let me say that one of the just go back just a little bit about the price point. To me, I don't know like how to turn this into a motto, but one of the biggest things about the space is that we have a price that's like a set price, but if you have a project and you have a passion to make the project happen, there's always wiggle room. There's always wiggle room on the price of renting something, because it's about, I'd rather the project get made and I'd rather it be successful than that being the cost of something being an inhibitor to doing it at all. So I think most filmmakers have a lot of tenacity and a lot of gumption and a lot of ability to make things happen. And as long as there's like mutual respect between my time and your time, that's the most important thing to me. So yeah, it's always about making the best movie possible. In terms of what got me to start the space, I've been doing production sound for maybe 3 or 4 years, maybe like somewhere around there, 3 to 4, something like that. And I was working on everyone else's films. I got my start at Open Signal, which is the public access TV station up the street. We're actually really close to it. I love the studio aspect of it. Doing production outside of the studio is a whole different beast, so I was also learning that. And I was teaming up with different people. I was working with different crews. I always noticed that most people have a camera, but they didn't have good sound gear. So I was able to invest in sound equipment, start networking, start meeting people. And then I kind of noticed that there was kind of maybe a cap to my level of involvement and my ability to like both make money and also to like be creative in terms of just doing sound. And I thought if I opened up a studio space, I can attract more people to me. I can be a kind of center of a wheel that different people can come to, and just have a greater impact and involvement in different projects. And it's also just more dynamic. It's more interesting to run the studio space. There's always new people coming by, you two included. There's always new films coming by. There's always new conversations being had about what we should offer, what we should do next. So having the studio space is just a very dynamic environment. It's definitely a very growing, learning environment, which is very appealing to me. It's also an environment where there's always problem solving, just by the nature of having a physical space and having different people come up with ideas on how to use it. There's always someone who says, like, what about this? And I said, I have no idea how that's going to work. Let's figure out how that could happen, and let's see. And I love the idea of like problem solving. People say, I want to do this. And it's like, could the space be that? Could that be successful? Let's see what that would take. And it's always very inspirational. So that's really what got me to start the space. I have a love of film. I have a love of media. I grew up watching TV. I love, I was just glued to the TV. I was glued to video games. I love media. I love film. And filmmaking is just so much fun. And it was a great way to bring people to me.
Yeah.
Are you from Portland?
I'm from Los Angeles. I'm from Torrance, actually. And I moved up here maybe 5 or 6 years ago. It's, again, hard to keep track.
Yeah.
But I was working in nonprofits, and they got really boring. I had like a steady job with a 401k and benefits and all that. And then I decided to take a leap and just start doing filmmaking. And I started meeting different people, and then I started going from getting paid $0 to getting paid $100 to $150 to $200 to $300, and then that started going up and up. And then I think I just took a leap from there, and I went from freelance to trying to open my own business, and it's been successful and fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's really cool.
It feels like, in a way, like you're living the dream. Like, I think this is what a lot of filmmakers want in their kind of like making movies, like not having to really rely on anyone else to an extent.
Sure.
Having a space with all this access and all these tools, having this network, having this ability to also provide for the film community in your area. I picture like my image is like someone knocking on the door of a studio being like, please let me in, and no one's opening up. and then you're like, fine, I'll just start my own studio, and people will come to me, and I'll do what other big studios can't necessarily or won't, depending on the situation. I mean, where does that come from? That wanting to give back and wanting to provide all this stuff for people? Because I'm hearing this and I'm like, wow, thank you so much for. But what aside from just liking film, is there anything else you get out of this? I mean, where does that come from, wanting to provide for the filmmakers in the area?
Oh, wow. Well, thank you so much for saying that. It doesn't always feel like that. It feels like on the one hand, I know I'm very fortunate to have the studio space open and for it to be doing relatively well, and for it to have a positive environment and impact on other people's lives, particularly the filmmaking community and people who have been able to make things through the space. On the other hand, there's a lot of headache. It's you gotta like be at the space, you gotta like clean the floors, and you gotta like you gotta pay the rent, and there's like a lot of little odds and ends that's a little bit of a headache. But I am very fortunate that I've been able to open the space, and thus far it's been pretty successful. And I really see, with like a 5-year plan, or I see like the next couple of years, I know where I want it to go. And I also feel very fortunate that I have that clarity of like, it's a studio space. It can be rented for almost any project. Photographers can use it. You can film a podcast here too. That's fine. As we're doing right now.
This is the best acoustics we've ever had in a episode ever.
Well, thank you for that. That's a great review. I actually need that as a quote for the website.
Yeah. You can use it. Yeah.
Do it. Do it.
And so, but I like the idea of having a studio that also has a hand in creating things for the community. So, and also at a level that's rotating in and out new talent. So like gaffers and actors and sound people and ACs and just different people at the indie level who aren't, union people are absolutely not excluded, but having a space that's someone's first job is like very, I don't know, that just makes me feel really good, because I remember it was really hard for me to get my first couple jobs, and for someone to get paid through the space has like a huge amount of like good feeling for me, and just to know that the space is providing those opportunities and networking connections, that's like a tremendous feeling. So having it be a positive influence for the film community and for it to be about filmmaking, and just when someone comes here, that they're trying to be a little bit more serious about making this a career or trying to make something for themselves or do something positive for their community and their environment. That's really important for me. I look back at all my last jobs, and I look back at a lot of past relationships I've had with different people and collaborators, and there's always been something about like there's a problem in the community, or not necessarily a problem, but there's like maybe people aren't networking enough, or maybe people aren't being connected enough, or maybe people aren't finding locations as easily, or maybe people have bad lights and their films aren't turning out the way that they want, and there's like something in my personality that just feels like, oh, I have to fix that. I need to make sure that those people know about us, that we're helping them, we're fixing the problem. And it's not about problems, it's not about fixing problems, but it's about like being a resource and being like, oh, hey, did you know actually if you did it this way, it could be a little bit better, and you're going to achieve your results. And also, I'm not the be-all, end-all of knowing what to do. So there's also other people here that you could get advice from, and that could be better. So there's this like organizational kind of like making things run smoother, connecting people, making people feel like they're a part of a team, making people feel like they can have a career out of this, making people feel like they can have positive impact in the film community, and that also helping the film community grow. I think that's another big part of the space. So I think all that together, part of my personality, part of Allison's personality. Unfortunately, she couldn't be with us today, but I think she would say very similar things about helping the community. I think all that comes together to make a space that is focused on making films. It's focused on having respect between team members. It's focused on people who are trying to make this into a career for themselves. And it's focused on trying to grow the indie film community at all levels. And I'd like to think that we're this kind of like joining link between like very new and people who are a little bit more established. We're kind of like a little bit under, crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's, and we're a little bit above shooting a movie entirely at your house.
Yeah.
So there's like
Calling
two
us
things.
out over here.
No, I have no
No,
idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's great. I think that's so cool to have that, like, an easy first step out of that realm of I'm shooting a movie at my parents' house because it's the only place that I know I can control, to, all right, what's it feel like to shoot in a controlled space, so like a studio space? And the fact that you're so willing to go out of your way to give those people that opportunity, I think that's so huge, because we wouldn't know where to start if we were trying to figure that out.
When I graduated film school, I was like, oh, great, I have a degree. How do I get a job?
Yeah.
And since then, it's like, okay, like finding other ways of doing it. We found our footing since, but I remember that initial thing of like, was that film school's fault or was that my fault? I felt kind of lost, and I didn't really know, how to turn this into a career, what's a practical use for all these skills and all that kind of thing. So I think if I had known about Videos of the Future, I mean, I think I graduated before you guys opened. Unfortunately. But if I'd known about like a space like this, I would have been like there all the time. I would have been like, oh my gosh, what can I work on? How can I, can I get involved? Because it seems like very accessible and educational too, like wanting to educate. I guess the only other closest thing was like the film center, which
Northwest Film Center
isn't the same thing necessarily.
No, it's like a film school before studio space.
And it's a school before the studio. And
they have a certificate program.
Yeah.
And I worked there for a while, and that was a fun place to work at, and it was a good community, but it's not as accessible just for the price alone. You immediately lose some folks with just some of the way that they were running things around there, in terms of like the film industry being easy to navigate, or like being able to learn from it necessarily.
So you said you're from LA.
Yeah.
Did you start your filmmaking journey there, or did that happen after you moved to Portland?
That happened after I moved to Portland.
Got it.
If I could go back and talk to a past version of myself, it would be to not go to school. Yeah, so let's give some advice to the kids. Don't go to school, don't get a degree, and just find something you're passionate about and just start doing it, because a resume that has a college degree on it, and the path that I tried to go with, my background is in art history, so that's not a very good degree for getting a job. So taking that degree and trying to find jobs and trying to find things that were relevant at different points in my life, I thought I wanted to run an art gallery. And part of this does scratch that itch of like, I'm not curating things, but I am helping artists connect with resources and helping to promote work and helping to create work, artistic work. I also wanted to be involved in like public arts programming, and that has this aspect of like, connecting the community with artists, with the city, and building like a statue or a mural. And all that never worked out. I never was able to get a job that had any sort of like meaningful money or felt respected or felt good about it. And so I ended up getting the job that I did up here in fundraising in a completely different field. And that got really boring. 9-to-5 job was not for me. It was just very static. And, I felt like year 2 was the same as year 1. And year 3 felt like it was going to be very dreadful. And so I started volunteering at Open Signal. I feel like Northwest Film Center and Open Signal are about the same kind of level of accessibility. They have classes. They have different stuff you can do there. And I took a bunch of classes. I met some people. And I went part-time. And then I started doing freelancing. And then I dropped the job totally. Started doing more freelancing. And then I went, and then it started to snowball from there. So my entry into filmmaking was up here, although I had always loved film. And I had always had a fascination with like photography and videography and special effects, miniatures, models, movies from the 80s and 90s, older stuff too. So yeah, I just have a love for film. That was the thing I had before, but coming up here, I quit a job, started working at Open Signal, and then I started doing sound work, and then I started opening a studio space.
What I love about the love of film with you and Allison, I really appreciate. I think when I think of my stereotype in my head of like independent film is like people in a room just talking
Uh-huh.
for like 90 minutes. That's the movie.
Yeah.
If you go into your mood board over there,
Yeah.
you have all sorts of genres. You're doing
Yeah.
a horror movie. You're doing like all these adventure kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You're working within genre, which is something that
Oh yeah.
really like speaks to us.
We're cut from the same cloth. It
Oh,
feels
yeah.
like.
Yeah.
Allison said that about y'all.
Yeah, nothing wrong with drama, nothing wrong with those kind of quieter movies. We like watching those time to time too, but genre is really what speaks to us, and like working within that and playing within that. And it's fun to see the space kind of lean into that, like making the office like a police
Station.
office.
Yeah.
Police station office,
Yeah.
or these red and blue walls are just for the horror video game. I love that.
And looking at like all the work that you support, it feels like a lot of that stuff again like leans into that. I feel like you found a connection in the community that's like other people that have a similar interest to you. I mean, one of the things you did earlier, we were chatting about it off camera, was you did like a Twin Peaks photo shoot, which was really cool. Like, again,
photos
like
turned out great. You can go to their Instagram.
Allison
They're really
did
cool.
an amazing job.
Yeah.
And we also did a video. Check that out. Hopefully we do Twin Peaks Day next year, and it's bigger, and there's like a public element to it. But
We'll
yeah,
need to
you
be
guys
there.
are totally spot on when talking about genre films. I think that's really important for the space. That's like a very key part that I might not have touched on, is that producing genre films is very important, because I think there's a lot of tendency to do films that are easy or slice of life, or not to say easy, but that are very grounded in reality and are very practical, because the most important thing is that people are doing things. You should make your film. You should make any film that you can make.
Yeah.
But when you can we just did a Western.
That's
Nice.
awesome.
Yeah, and that was very small in scope, and it worked the way that it did because it was small in scope. But to do sci-fi stuff, to do horror stuff, to do things like even a Christmas movie is a genre movie. But to put in that little bit of extra effort to make sure that something is, when you look at the poster, like, oh, that I react to and I respond and I have an affinity with that movie or not. Like, this is a movie cut from the cloth of summer blockbusters. This is a movie cut from the cloth of 80s horror movies. This is a Western. This is even a romantic comedy. I think that it could have kind of goofy or wacky angles, but it's very genre focused here. A movie you kind of need to know what a movie is right away from our storyboarding process for us to be able to make it.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
I love it. So what are those movies that influenced you growing up or getting into film? It sounds like they'd be genre movies, or is it
No,
something
it's all
else?
over the place. It really is all over the place. Let's see. So I think my all-time favorite film my favorite film of all time is Schenectady, New York, which is Charlie Kaufman. He wrote and directed it, and that stars Philip Seymour Hoffman. What I love about that film is that all of filmmaking, all of acting, all of storytelling, all of production is in that movie. It's a movie about making art. It's a movie about putting on a play. Essentially, it's like the story of that movie. It goes in very surreal and different aspects, but that's something I really resonate with, like movies that are about storytelling. Other favorites, I love Kubrick. I love David Lynch. Those, I know a lot of people like them, but I really like them, and I really resonate with some of their greatest hits: The Shining, 2001: A Space Odyssey, Mulholland Drive, Blue Velvet. Such good classics. I could watch them again and again and again and see new things in them each time. I also love very cheesy 90s, 80s movies. I love Hackers. That's a really good one. I know you guys have seen that one.
Yeah.
The Thing, the special effects in that. I know I could list all these, like, oh yeah, everyone likes those, but they're good for a reason.
Yeah.
They're good for a reason. They're classics. RoboCop is another big one for me, 1 and 2. I also really enjoy movies that, I think some of those are like this, some of what I just listed. Movies that are mostly grounded in reality, but there's one thing that's like totally abstract and totally surreal, a la There's a Robot Police Officer. A la there's a it's an Antarctic research station, but there's an alien invasion.
Yeah.
And by the way, most of the time the alien just kind of looks like us.
Yeah.
That's a brilliant way to do that for the majority of the film. Or most of David Lynch's things are like that. It's like there's a woman with a split identity, and she's really trapped in between this world of imagining being an actress and not being an actress, and that's what Mulholland Drive is at its core. And there's many odd and unusual things within it. Also grew up just watching a lot of cartoons, watching a lot of Power Rangers. That's one that really I have like a big affinity with. Also a lot of Nickelodeon, so a lot of like Pete and Pete. That's like one of my all-time favorite shows.
Cartoons are the best.
Yeah. So that's probably what influenced me as a child. I also just like a good movie, but I also want to make sure that the space is not just dramas that are personal to me. One thing I think is difficult is with a lot of movies, and I think we can all imagine maybe the sort of movie I'm talking about, is that it's so personal to a writer and director, but there's not this hook, or there's not this like, it's easy to say like put a space alien in it, or put some sex and blood and gore in it, but it needs to have some sort of element that is relatable to the audience. That has some element that is like fun and enjoyable. That's not just like a very personal drama, melodrama sort of thing.
Something I was telling Allison about when we met was, for me, what I love about horror movies, or just genre movies in general, but specifically horror, is like, the way I look at it is I could make a movie about someone being depressed and sad, and they deal with that in a very literal way, but it's more exciting to me, more accessible for the viewer, I think, to make a horror movie where the monster represents sadness or depression, or the audience can project whatever they want onto that creature, and I can still kind of exercise those kind of like demons and those feelings or whatever you have personally as an artist, but there's this genre hook where there's this thing that is more accessible and just more entertaining, because I think life is great and there's value in finding beauty in everyday life. I think that's important too, but I also think, wouldn't it be awesome if monsters existed? Wouldn't it be awesome if we have laser swords? Like, that's just good fun that I think most people can connect to.
It's good to live in a little bit of fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because although it does exist in real life, wonder and imagination and all that, it's kind of nice when you can tune into a movie's wavelength and fall into a world. I want to give another call out. I watched Psycho Goreman. I don't know if you guys have seen that one.
No.
Our friend JC was telling us about this movie.
So Psycho Goreman's really good, and that's another good example of like what the movie's really about is about like a brother and sister, and they're like growing apart, and they're not quite getting along, and their mom and dad are not kind of getting along, and but then that's like plot A, but plot B, which is even bigger, which is like there's an intergalactic war with a space alien that's like coming to Earth and he lands in their backyard, and there's wacky mischief. So it's a way of telling both stories. It's like, oh, you have this like alien space opera thing that's like, it's kind of like a horror themed sci-fi thing, and then there's also like a bit of a family drama about a brother and sister not getting along.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. No, our friend was telling us about that. He was just saying, you have to see it. And
so good.
Yeah, it's on our list.
Yeah.
We'll have to check it out. Yeah. What time are we at? Really quick.
Oh, we're at like 28 minutes.
20 minutes. Okay. Don't want to go too over or anything.
No, we're good. We're good.
Cool. So where do you see, you mentioned a 5-year plan earlier.
Yeah.
Where do you see the future of video
is
is
the future.
Yeah, I love that.
What's the, I guess, the goal of that end of that 5 years, you think?
Yeah. Okay. So I think, so year 1 and 2, it's all about kind of getting the space ready for other people to feel comfortable at. To be honest, the first year was kind of a time in which I wasn't quite sure, like, everybody could rent the space. Like, how does the space work? And I think now there's a good sense of like, this will work, this won't work. This is a good idea. This is an idea that like maybe could work. Let's set some expectations. So these first 2 years were really about setting up the space to be available for other people. And so kind of year 2 or year 1.5 going into year 2.5, we're producing our own stuff. So we just shot a Western and a romantic comedy. Festivals, the Westerns in festivals right now, and the romantic comedy is going to be in festivals soon.
Great.
After that, we're going to move on to the next project, and the next project, and the next project. So we're going to knock out a bunch of short films, and then hopefully we're going to do some low-budget feature films. And I really want this place to be a destination for people to start getting connected with distribution and with people being able to perhaps even find financing for their film. So this could be kind of like a little, in truth, a real movie studio to me means it's not just my projects, but there's some sort of like umbrella or like some sort of quality control to make sure that different people can come into the space, use resources, and also find distribution for their films, and that we can all benefit from that. So I think going into the future, by the end of the 5 years, what I would be really happy with is that the space is always working on some sort of feature film, whether or not that's mine or some close collaborators, and it's going to evolve to be a place where people can create, where people can film their film and find distribution, get it released on, Amazon Prime, Tubi, and perhaps Netflix in the future, or whatever streaming platform is in vogue, and have it be a marketable thing and advance their film careers. So I would love for this to be kind of a hub for people to grow out of, which it is now, but I would love for it to be more centered on feature films and people being able to finance their films and people getting paid for what they're worth.
Great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. This is a random question, which is more relevant to us and the folks that we've kind of been interacting with. What are your thoughts on distribution through YouTube?
Truthfully, I think that of all the platforms the space is on and has potential to grow on, YouTube is probably one of the ones that I'm like the least concerned about. I think it's a different thing. It could change in the future, but I think the way that people watch movies just isn't quite on YouTube. And what I'm always, and that's not to say that someone who is on YouTube is doing it wrong, or that it's just not a path that I'm interested in going down.
Yeah.
I feel like it's maybe perhaps, and I don't know, you guys can tell me, I have a very poor idea of this. Maybe it's a little bit more personality based. It's a little bit more it's a little bit more like branded based. You go to someone's channel for their content, which is like a duh. But I think that I also think you have to be putting out content very regularly.
Oh yeah.
And you have to be putting out content like quickly. And also I think the formatting of what YouTube is lends itself to much smaller bites of like under 10 minutes. But then also I know that the algorithms for like how people watch things are always changing. I just have a different perception of like who is a media maker on YouTube versus who is on like streaming platforms, although YouTube is a streaming platform. But I also think that YouTube has kind of like admittedly tried to go down that path. There's like a YouTube Red or like a YouTube Premium.
They did, yeah.
And they were trying to produce original content. And then I think very recently they shut it down. So for whatever reason, it just wasn't working for them. And I think that there's almost kind of like an authenticity. Of course, everything has authenticity to it, but there's an authenticity to the content that people want to consume through YouTube that's very personal and connected to the content maker. And what I'm trying to make is actually not very involved with me, or
it's less personal.
It's less personal.
Yeah.
There's certainly, I'm in it. It is part of my worldview. It is part of like my creative energy. But what I'm trying to put out is something that is kind of like more artificial, that people can kind of like go into, they can kind of enjoy as a movie. I think that you could absolutely watch a movie and have a good experience on YouTube. But I think the community of people watching things on YouTube is a little bit different than the people. But then there's you could go viral. It's maybe easier to go viral. I have no idea. Really, I have no idea.
And that's exactly it, though. It is a mixed bag on YouTube. It's some people will find success one way and some another. And we've seen all sides of that happening around us. So
there's no right or wrong way. It's whatever works.
Exactly.
And it's the way I've described it is it's like a jungle. Both filmmaking and like internet success, whatever that means, is a jungle. There's no right way to get through it. You can walk, you can drive, you can fly, whatever works for you, as long as you're just not eaten by a tiger or whatever.
or as long as you keep moving.
You keep moving, yeah. What about TikTok?
We're on TikTok now. To be honest, TikTok kind of scares me. When you turn it on,
You're not alone.
When you turn it on, it just starts shouting. It just goes instantly. So
Yep.
I'm very cautious of TikTok. I also hear it's owned by the Chinese government. I'm not sure how I feel about that. But no, in all honesty, TikTok, of course, is a big part of the future as like people are getting better internet access and higher speed internet. Instagram is for photos, and they're trying to do video stuff, but this like short form, like 10-second video thing, and the formatting that's happening, or like the memes or the whatever people are doing on that, that has a lot of power. That's what people want to consume. That's meeting people where they're at. It's making it very easy for people to consume. So it's very powerful. I don't think a movie could be on it. That'd be very interesting to see like what a 10-second movie on TikTok could be.
Well, the length now is at 3 minutes.
They added it.
Yeah, but no one likes that, right?
Yeah.
Like
That's
that's
true.
a little too
That is
long,
true.
right?
That's
like,
very true.
Like I suppose that probably opens some new opportunities, but it's probably not what it needs to be. So we do use TikTok, and we use it for like some behind the scenes and just kind of like communicating and like having some fun or funny videos. But yeah, it's just kind of like both TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook are all just kind of like those are just the best ways for people to learn what's going on at the space and how to get involved.
Yeah. It's more behind the scenes based rather than well, aside from photos, I'd imagine, or like short videos, but it's more like, here's what's happening here. This is what we going on. Less so, here's a 30-minute short film we made. Check it out.
Yeah. And also, for our purposes here, although I would love for the things we make to be huge hits and get millions and millions of views, and for people to want our next project to be whatever, I actually think the most important people for the space and the people that I want to be happy and to be enjoying our content are other filmmakers who want to see what's going on at the space. So they should be watching, and I appreciate when anybody watches anything, but if they wanted to watch our 10-minute thing, I just like it when people are involved and they see like how they can be involved and they can get ideas from our page, and when they see like stuff in progress, or they see we're doing this day or this event, and then they can come by and use the space, and then different things happen, and then that kind of grows from there. It's almost like there's two different parts of like the space growing and then our projects being successful. Both are tied together, but it's like one's a viewing audience and one's a filmmaking audience.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
When a filmmaker comes to you then and is like, I want to make a movie with you all, and you kind of semi-produce it but collaborate and work with that filmmaker, I mean, I guess when it comes to, I guess, the distribution, where that movie goes and that kind of the life after the movie's made, is that the film on the filmmaker? Or is that on, or do you and Allison, do you all like to take kind of responsibility, like, here, we're going to help this movie be the most successful that it can be?
I think right now it's probably more on the filmmaker. We've had a couple collaborations where we've helped other people produce things. One thing that I always find is that when someone has a story and what they're producing and what we're both putting money into, or what we're splitting or finding different shared responsibilities on, it's oftentimes so personal for them that they, I could say, hey, you need to get an editor. You can't edit this yourself. It's going to take too long. But sometimes people might not want to hear that because they're so close to the project. They want it to be their baby, and I respect that. I also think that there's a lot of projects where people want to, have they want to have things a certain way and on their timetable, and so I think most of the time it's like a collaboration on parts but not the whole. I think that's what's been successful so far. We are probably going to reincorporate helping to produce other people's films. We do get asked that a lot, like, oh, would you ever be down to produce my idea? I have this idea for this and this. I am open to that, but we probably need to come up with a slightly better system of like, okay, who owns the film? What's your responsibility? What's the set going to be like? How are we going to cast, like, for mutually agreeable crew and cast people? So I think that's going to come again in the future, but I think most of the time, I do want the space to have kind of in part a neutral feel to it.
Yeah.
So that if you're shooting at the space, you don't feel like we have. You know, I shouldn't have a lot of say if it's your project. If you're shooting a scene or two here, then it's totally your project, and you should take it wherever you want and post it wherever you want. I think if I have a high level of involvement in it, if it's a really big collaboration, if it's at the space for a long period of time, if I put money into it, if I've helped someone produce it, I think that's a little bit different of a conversation.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of people renting the space and bringing ideas here and trying to make stuff happen, I think we want to be kind of nurturing and encouraging, kind of like some light producing. I'm like doing air quotes, like just like helping connect people and helping people figure out how to navigate some things. But right now we're concentrating on finding distribution and growing our own projects. And then eventually what I would love to see is I would love for this to be like a factory. I would love for this, people have like said with like, in a pejorative sense, like it's a sausage factory, like we're making these kind of like low budget things. It's like, I don't know, that's kind of the point. This is supposed to be like a low budget indie thing for people to grow their projects from. So I would love for us to kind of like systematize like pre-production, production, post-production, distribution. I would love for that to be kind of like A, B, C, D. And of course people bring their own vibes. Of course people bring their own crews. Of course people bring their own cast. Of course, people bring themselves to the project, but there's some sort of like skeleton, or there's some sort of like outline, or there's some sort of like videos of the future, kind of like, hey, here's step one. Here's what we're going to do in step one. This is inside step one. This is outside of step one. To get it to the final point. So I think that's coming in the future. That's definitely part of the 5-year plan, or what I'm seeing on the horizon. But yeah, there's also kind of a neutrality. I don't want people to feel like I have a lot of say on what their projects are. When they come by the space, it's as long as they're respectful, as long as they're about filmmaking, as long as they're being professional, then it's kind of, you can do whatever you want with the space as long as you return it the way you found it.
That's important. That's very important.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, like going even, have you thought past 5 years? Or is that not even on your mind?
Sure. So, okay, I think realistically, by 10 years, if this is still going on, I would love to have a second office in Los Angeles, which would be probably not like this. This is like a space that's geared towards filming inside, but some sort of second office in Los Angeles where we can like bring talent back and forth. We can like have auditions there and bring people up here. We can have like people networking down there and bringing people up here, and having perhaps like a bigger space than our current space, something that has an even bigger main showcase studio room that we're sitting in right now, and having that grow bigger and bigger, and kind of just saying to people around the country, even saying like, oh, hey, if you have an idea for your film, your budget's going to go a lot farther in Portland. Also, we have a lot of connections up here. You might not care who your gaffer or your sound person is. And also, we have a lot of great local talent for actors in town. Why don't you bring your film up to my studio space up here, and then you can spend more of the budget on special effects. You can spend more of the budget on this or that. Instead of locations, instead of this or that. So, so a bigger space, having some sort of built connection with Los Angeles, that's what I'm looking forward to.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
That's awesome.
I have one last thing. So so go back onto the distribution conversation. You talked about film festivals a little bit. Have you had a lot of experience in film festivals, and just what has that been like for you guys far?
So not too much.
Yeah.
So I have to admit the only thing we have in festivals right now is the Western.
Yeah.
And we submitted to plenty. I'm sure it's going to get into a good number of them. So far, 2 deadlines have passed. One we got into, one we didn't.
Yeah.
And the one we got into, we were a finalist, so that was nice. Finalist for Best Drama. And I think there's kind of a long tail on these, which is kind of unfortunate because I would love to share it, but most of the festivals say like you can't.
Yeah, it's one of those normal festival rules.
So I submitted to a bunch of festivals in Los Angeles, Seattle, and Portland. Actually, looking up any festival that had a Western category is what we did. So, so we did stuff in Wyoming, in Albuquerque, in Dallas, and so Yeah, so I can't really say too much about it, like where the success has or hasn't been. We got into one, we didn't get into another. March is probably going to be another 4 that we'll get letters from. And we're going to release the romantic comedy soon. That's kind of in its final stage of editing. And then we're going to submit to things that might have like best romantic comedy and, have that be there. But to me, I think... And I'm so new to this, so I just don't know. But what I'm hoping to get out of the festivals is to be in attendance, hand out the business cards and the swag and the T-shirts and whatever, and say like, oh, hey, look, we filmed this at our studio space. That driving sequence of the people talking in the car, that was at my studio. And you could do that too. Or like, oh, that small town police station, that was at the studio space. Or that hospital scene, that was at the studio space. So meeting other filmmakers, just connecting with other people, talking about the studio, talking about the benefits of being here, talking about what you can do here, talking about like, oh, I just saw your film, because I love watching other people's indie films. I just saw your film, and I would love for you to come by the space and think about a project that we could collaborate on. So I think it's just more networking, it's more collaborating. I know some people... it's not even about the laurels. It's not about I don't know. I'm just interested in collaborating and meeting new people through the festivals, and if I can get that out of it, that's what I'm looking for. And I think at different levels, if features versus short films, of like a serious drama thing versus this Western or this romantic comedy, some people might be like, I'm trying to get into Oscars. That's like how you submit to qualifying festivals, then you get into Oscars. Or I'm trying to win like prizes, because there's often prizes for like best screenplay or best this or that. I think there's also, at certain places like Sundance or Telluride or
TIFF is a big one. Slam Dance.
All the ones in Austin.
South by Southwest.
There's always distributors there looking for films, and they're like, oh, I'd love to talk about buying this film. So that I think that's a dream for a lot of people. Yeah, right now we're starting small, we're starting manageable, we're making sure that everything we're doing is a success that can be completed and get us one step above the ladder. I think also a big thing for the space is being consistent. So we're always trying to produce something, we're always trying to stagger things out so that there's always new content coming out, so that the space always looks very much alive. And so being in festivals, having a new project being completed, starting on the next project, it all goes into festivals, it all goes into hopes of distribution, it all goes into showing people and inspiring people of like different ideas you could do here. So that's kind of been the festival strategy, which is say like, we're just trying to hopefully meet people.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's cool. I love that it's also not just getting your movie to play, but it's like, that's our movie. Your movie can be shot in the same place. I feel like it gives so much more legs to not just the movie success, but then it also comes back into this place. That's a really smart strategy. I love that.
That's like going to a film festival and like most people are like, I have a Sony camera. I have this kind of mic.
I shot in a red.
I have a film studio. We could collab at this film studio. Come by. Like, that's the cool kid with like the...
Oh, I hope so.
Got the light up sneakers.
Exactly, the light up sneakers. Yeah, that's cool. That's awesome.
Wheels on them too.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sweet.
Perfect.
Well,
let's move on to our next section. I think what are you working on is appropriate.
Yeah.
If you can remember everything that the studio or you personally are working on, just rattle off. What have you been working on?
What have I been working on?
Yeah.
So let's see. So we recently shot the romantic comedy, and that was a lot of fun. So that's almost done. That was about a like punk rock girl at a bookstore that sees a boy who's like a bookstore clerk, and she's like, oh, I want to flirt with him, but I don't know how because I'm not a reader. And then she has an imaginary best friend who happens to look like Elvis, who gives her all the wrong advice on how to start a book club, and she talks to Shakespeare, Frankenstein, and Captain Ahab, and they're all figments of her imagination. And then and then she works up the courage to talk to the boy, and it turns out they both like comic books.
Yeah.
So that's almost done. And I think
As you say that, I remember seeing casting listings for this online in the film community, like on Facebook and stuff. That's hilarious.
So that's going to come out, and that's, that one I've kind of stepped back from because now it's with the editor, and it's going well, and it's all the rough cut. So now we're going to do score and post sound.
Great.
And then later this month we're going to shoot. Later this month, we're going to shoot a noir called The Bitter End. You can find some of the marketing material on our pages. And that's going to be a detective down on his luck, is at a bar trying to get one last drink, but before he has to confront his past. So we have a devil bartender, who kind of like that scene in The Shining where Jack Nicholson's talking to the bartender that's not there. And he's going to face down some truths, and so that one is written, and we cast it, and we are going to have a table read this week. Then we're going to have a pre-production meeting, then we're going to shoot it at the end of the month.
Great.
And I think that one's going to go really well. And then soon we're going to announce an 80s slasher meets giallo Italian film. That one's going to be called Party Killer, and so that one's also written, and we're in the early stages of casting that one. And that's about two brothers who go to a party. And one brother is like cool, but he's actually kind of like douchey and like annoying. And the younger brother is kind of a nerd, and he's like excited to go his first adult party. And turns out one of them might be a party killer in the sense of one person is worried about the party being lame because they had to bring their younger brother, and the other person being worried that their older brother might be trying to kill them because he was flirting with the girl that the older brother wanted to flirt with. So
great.
yeah, that was also going to be kind of funny and interesting. So I wrote and with Allison's help produced all of those, and I'm going to direct and shoot the noir and the 80s slasher. And
did you direct the romantic comedy
no,
one?
I didn't. We got a very trusted other local filmmaker, Michaela. She was in town, or she was in the studio to help direct that one. I just wanted some more help to just concentrate on filming that one. So the next two are going to be directed and filmed by me.
Great.
Yeah. And we have a bunch of photo shoots coming up. We also have a video. We also shot a bunch of commercials recently.
We saw that on social media.
Yeah, so we had a super cut of these commercials that are kind of like these parodies of classic older commercials. So there's a parody of an American Online commercial. There's a parody of a TV psychic. There's a parody of a used car salesman. There's also a Twilight Zone one. That one doesn't quite fit, but these are all like classic things you would see on 4x3 kind of TV screens. We're going to do another one next week that is going to highlight the fact that we have a police car for rent. So now you can...
Wait, what? When did this happen?
Oh yeah,
I missed this.
Yeah, I didn't drive that here today. I should have. We could do that next time.
Yeah, next time. Oh my gosh.
So we have a Crown Victoria that's painted blue and white, so it's the right colors. We also have the sirens that you can put on top, and so it looks exactly like a police car from the I guess like 2009 and below. So it looks like a classic 90s to 2000s police car. It's available for rent.
How much? Because there's a project that I have.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So what I would tell people, it's $300 and that's negotiable.
Okay.
So you can tell me what's in your budget and we can try to make it work.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah. So we have a police car that's available for rent. We have our own projects that are going to use it, but we're going to film another commercial to advertise the police car. We're going to team up with the Portland Slee Stack. Have you seen this guy?
No.
Do you guys know Land of the Lost?
Yeah.
Yeah, do you know the like lizard aliens in that?
Yeah.
So there's a guy in town that built his own Slee Stack lizard costume. Okay. He goes around town trying to scare people and just be weird.
That's very Portland.
It's very Portland. And he has a bunch of people that he collaborates to do videos with. He was just like, I just want to work with more people. You guys should actually reach out to him and do something with him too. But we're going to do a commercial with him where a woman is, so he looks like a green alien lizard man. He looks like a lizard man, a green lizard man.
Yeah.
And he doesn't talk, and he can kind of like barely walk in the outfit. We're going to do a commercial where a woman is walking down the street with a baby filled with money. A criminal steals the baby, and she says, "Oh my God, who's going to help me steal? Who's going to help me save my baby filled with money?" And then she goes, "What? Sleestak cop?" And he's going to be wearing a very comical police uniform and hat. And he's going to be waddling, kind of like stumbling, walking after the other guy who's going to be running like crazy. We also have a steady cam here. That's another cool thing that we have in the space. So I'm going to be running with this guy with a steady cam. I'm trying to get better at the steady cam. So we're going to have these very fluid running shots, a la Birdman, a la Good Times, a la, I don't know, Children of Men. Cool. We're also going to be filming that. So a commercial with the Portland Sleestak to advertise our cop car for film rental. And we actually have someone's renting it. Cyberpunk, a local, I think it's a feature. A local feature film is renting our police car for a shoot this next weekend. That's going to be good. And we're getting inquiries for it. We're going to put a for rent sign out in the parking lot so people can see what it looks like.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so it's cool to have a film studio and have a police car and drive around in it and tell people that it could be for the films.
You all have all the stuff that filmmakers don't write into their projects because
that's
like,
the point.
I can't get it. And I appreciate that so much. Like the hospital set y'all want to build, police
everything,
station, anything with police. That's great.
Yeah,
just having an empty room, like the room we're in, that's just blacked out. Like that is a pain in the butt. Any filmmakers try to do that on their own in their room. It's not easy.
Ties in a little bit to that, but answering our kind of segment of the podcast question. I've just been storyboarding a whole bunch this week for the next feature, but also doing a little bit of writing for the one. That one's a secret kind of, but we'll be doing it soon. And you are, what have you been up to?
Editing The Bell Rings and then working on the story, probably not even going to be a script, but just the storyboards for a short film we're going to be shooting next week. So top secret, but it'll be out quick.
People will see it soon.
Yeah. All my things are finally kind of coming to their hopeful end.
Yes.
And then I can move on to other things. I had a pre-production meeting with a certain Nathan Cash of RC Films to pitch an idea to him. So
should be fun.
Friend of the channel.
Now, we'll close with this segment called What Are You Watching? And this can go as long or as short as you need. But what have you been watching this last week or month? I mean, this is your first time on, so what have you been really, vibing with recently?
Me and my girlfriend have been watching this amazing series called Stalked by My Doctor. Have you guys seen this or
no?
Okay, so it's they're feature films. They're I think produced by Lifetime. So these Lifetime movies.
Okay.
The first one is this perfect blend of Lifetime movie and horror movie, and it's about a cardiovascular surgeon, a heart doctor, who falls in love with one of his patients and he stalks her. And so the first one is like it plays it pretty straight. It's like she's in the hospital. He's starting to fall in love with her. He's very creepy. He's like doing very inappropriate things that a doctor shouldn't do. He's a very scary doctor. If you can imagine all the ways in which a doctor or someone who has power over you while you're under anesthetics, he is being very creepy to this young woman. And he becomes obsessive and ends up kidnapping her, and her boyfriend and her mom have to like find out what happened to her and where she is. But then there's like 4 other movies. So the main doctor, the main antagonist, I mean, really he kind of becomes, the first one he's like dastardly and evil. But there's 4 other movies and he becomes actually very sympathetic and he's like very charismatic and he becomes the star. He's played by Julie Roberts' brother. I feel bad. I don't know what his name is.
Roberts.
Something
Mr.
Roberts. But he's great. He hams it up. He's so funny. These movies become the second and third one, and I'm gonna watch the 4th one soon. They become so absurd, and they're comical. They're like laugh out loud funny because of where they go. And the first one's supposed to be a horror movie. The second one is just like all out crazy. There's like a musical number that's like totally out of nowhere in the third one.
That's great.
It's so funny. It's so good. And then so that's the one I would elaborate on most. I've also been watching a little bit of Cowboy Bebop, the anime. I've been watching a little bit of Doom Patrol, the HBO show.
I need to get started on that.
Yeah, it's really good. That's my favorite comic book of all time. I've been watching I started watching an Italian horror movie today called Strip Nude for Your Killer. It's about it's a giallo film in which different murders are happening at a photographer's studio. Also, I watched last night at the Red Fox, which is a bar. Church of Film put on The Cat Comes Back, which is this Czech film about a cat that wears sunglasses, and if the sunglasses fall off the cat's head, it can see what color you are, and everyone is one of 4 colors.
Oh, wow.
So if you're red, you're like a lover, and if you're purple, you're a liar, and if you're yellow, and so the town people have this antagonistic relationship with the cat because they don't want to be seen for their true colors, and everyone begins to see who each other really is. So that was a very interesting film. And I also watched Allison's favorite film of all time, which is Skate Kitchen, which is a film about young girls in New York skateboarding. And that was also a lot of fun to talk with her about.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's great. What have you been watching?
I watched Cody Clark, another friend of the channel. He sent out a link for us to watch his new feature film, No Shark. So I watched that 2 nights ago. Had a really good time watching it. I was really excited. He's been working on that for a long time, so it's cool to finally see it. And I just really enjoyed it. It was a cool movie. I'm excited for whenever it comes out. So yeah, when you get a chance to see that one, anyone listening, be on the lookout. At some point it'll go public, I'm sure. But yeah, other than that, not a whole lot. I have not seen Batman yet, which I feel kind of bad about, but I'll get to it. I got plans this week to go see it, so it's going to happen. Somehow I've avoided spoilers, and that's been the main thing that I've been trying to do.
It's like navigating a minefield.
I just don't go on
online.
Twitter right now, and that's the main place I know it's going to happen. So I just don't go there. And other than that, I watched like a little bit of Community, and that's about it. It's been a pretty light movie watching week for me, but it's been the good stuff what I have seen. So that's good at least.
I have seen Batman. I saw that. I also saw Cody's movie.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed that one. But the biggest thing that I want to elaborate on the most is OMSI. They've been doing a Studio Ghibli film
that's
festival.
popular.
So I saw Porco Rosso this weekend, and then Howl's Moving Castle and
Love Howl.
Totoro.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was really fun. And the crowd watching is really fun there too, because Porco Rosso wasn't very busy compared to the other ones, but like Totoro had a bunch of kids in the audience.
It's a little bit more kid-friendly.
More kid-friendly, and you could tell a lot of the parents are like, they loved it, so they're dragging their kids to see it.
The next generation gets it.
The next generation will get it. And then, with Howl's Moving Castle, you had a lot of people in their 20s. Like there's maybe 3 kids total at the showing.
It's pretty intense.
Well, I think it's because people our age or in our generation, they saw that growing up and they really liked it. And so the differences between the crowds is really funny.
It's a little bit more of a big adventure.
Yeah. And so, and man, I mean, kind of going back to what we talked about a little bit, that blending of like fantastical, but at the same time appreciating everyday kind of things is something I think Miyazaki does really well. That merging of those two, like what's real, how can you appreciate and enjoy everyday life, but what's also something that really just stimulates your imagination.
Yeah.
That I really enjoy.
Yeah.
Where can people find Videos of the Future?
People can find Videos of the Future at a couple places. Let me list them in order of what I think you'd all enjoy. Go to our Instagram page. I think that's going to be the best place. So that's at Videos the Future. That's going to be the best place to see the most interesting content and for the best resources to find out more about us and also how to be involved. You could also go to our Facebook page, which is at Video Future. So Instagram is at Video is the Future. Facebook is at Video Future. We also have a website, which is videoisthefuture.com. And we also have a YouTube page, which I'm sure if you search for Videos of the Future, you'd be able to find our YouTube page. So we have some stuff up there. Again, we're not like super big on YouTube, but I think staying up to date on Instagram, staying up to date on Facebook, that's the best way to see what's going on at the studio space. To get involved, please send an email to studio@videosthefuture.com, which is all over our social media and our website and all that. But studio@videosthefuture.com, that's the best way to find out about how to rent the space, how to find out about our services, how to find out about how to get involved in our projects and vice versa.
Yeah, and we'll have all that stuff linked down below.
Cool.
So anyone listening, you can just scroll on down, and we'll hopefully have some links there for you. You can follow nice and easy. So yeah,
make it easy for people.
we try.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for sitting
Yeah.
down with us and bringing us in here and talking with us for a little bit. Really appreciate it. This is a cool space you got.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much for stopping by. You guys are welcome anytime.